Hello everyone, it's Bex. Welcome back to our channel. Today I am doing a book unhaul. I like to start the new year by just clearing my shelves of things that I am either no longer interested in reading, maybe read and have no interest in keeping, or tried to read and just said, nope, not for me. I have books that fall into each of those categories here today, so I am going to share with you what I'm getting rid of. I'll start off with the books that fall into that nope, not for me category because I fully intended to try and read these books, and after a certain amount of pages, I just could not take it anymore, really. The first of those is Bella Tuscany, The Sweet Life in Italy by Frances Mays. I got this at a library book sale a number of years ago. It's been on my TBR forever, or it had been anyway, and I finally decided to give it a shot because it was pretty short, and with this year, the pandemic, not being able to travel, very real reality, and I figured this might be a nice way to sort of travel through a book. This is the companion story to Under the Tuscan Sun, which a lot of you will probably be familiar with. It's the same idea, except this time it's been a little bit since they have purchased this house in Italy and have started to try and fix it up. And Frances has gotten a sabbatical from work, so she is going to Italy in the springtime with plans to, really live that sweet life in Italy during a different time of year. So I was looking forward to hearing about Italian culture and food and the people and everything like that. And we were at least 20 pages in, if not more, plus the introduction, and she would not stop talking about the vegetables in the garden and asparagus in particular. Just the plants and everything, and talking about tending the garden and going to pick things from the garden and cooking, and that is just not what I want to read about at all. I hate reading about cooking. Yeah, I was immediately like, okay, am I really going to like this? I decided to go onto Goodreads to see what other people were saying, see if it got any better, and the general consensus was no, it does not get any better. So I decided this one was not for me. The other book that I tried and failed with was We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. I read the first 50 pages of this in 2019 and then kind of put it down, decided maybe I wasn't in the mood for it. The writing style was something I was already kind of struggling with, and I told myself I would try to read it again in 2020, and if that didn't work, I was going to get rid of it. This has a very intriguing plot line, and it's very creepy, and I've heard a lot of people say that yes, the beginning is kind of slow, but once you get into it, it's totally worth it. The thing is, getting into it is like 200 pages in, apparently, and I couldn't deal with how pretentious the writing was. Tried it again this year. I sort of skimmed the first 50 pages to remind myself in greater detail of what I read, and then I tried to continue from there, and it was just, nope. Plus the fact that I've just learned some things about Lionel Shriver and how she's not really a great person, so that even just turned me off from this more. So trying to deal with her pretentious writing and how slow it was and her in general, I was just, no, it was time to give up. I just decided to read a plot summary on Wikipedia so I would know what happened. And I do agree that the twist is pretty cool. Like, it would have been really interesting to read that, but it was not worth pushing through the writing style to get to it. The final book that's part of that nope, not for me is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I've had this on at my TBR for a long time. I picked it up years ago at a library book sale, and over the years I've heard more and more opinions about how this book is really not that good. I've read other Rainbow Rowell books. Nowadays I don't really care for what she's putting out, but this one I was thinking, okay, it's really short. I've read some of her other books. I really enjoyed Fangirl when I read it, so let me see what this one feels like. And just right from the beginning, I was just, I don't know, something felt weird about it. I guess because it's this guy he's monitoring emails at a company, and he kind of it seems like he becomes a bit obsessed with these two women who are emailing back and forth, talking about things that aren't work related, but he doesn't flag them for it because he likes to read what they're talking about. And it just seemed sort of like a creepy, voyeuristic in a way. That was the vibe I was getting. And maybe that's really not how it plays out, but combine that with just some opinions that I've heard where it's just not that good, I decided that this one wasn't for me either. Another book I'm getting rid of that I never read at all is The Last Voyage of Poe Blythe by Ali Condie. This was sent to me as an unsolicited arc 2019, so probably early 2019. I was curious enough to keep it, but then after doing some further research when I was trying to decide what books I should get rid of, it sounds like this actually ties into the Matched trilogy, and you appreciate this book a lot more if you've read that trilogy, although it follows different characters, I guess. So I never read the Matched trilogy. I have no desire to, so this kind of confirmed for me that this really isn't worth my time to read it. I really do like the cover, and it is an ARC, so I can't really like give it away to Goodwill or something, but there is a little free library that I found not too far away from me, so I might be able to just drop that in there. Another book that I just decided not to even try to read is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This is a monster book and pretty well known about the JFK assassination and sort of alternate history. And this was a book that a friend was giving away, and I picked it up out of a huge pile of books and thought, you never know, maybe. And now I'm just sitting here like, it's huge. Am I really gonna spend the time to read this book? Like, is it really worth it for me to read this, you know? And I just don't think it is. I don't think I want to spend the time to actually get through this. Maybe if it was an audiobook and I could be walking, running, cleaning, whatever while listening, but I really don't think I'm going to commit to something like this. So I didn't pay for it, so it's fine with me. It's gonna get donated. This next little stack of 3 books was actually from a video that I did semi-recently, a try a chapter video, which I will link up above and down below if you want to go watch it, where I picked a few books off of my TBR shelf that I'd had for a long time, and I just really wasn't sure if they were books that I wanted to read anymore, so I was reading the first chapter or so of each of them. And there were 3 that I decided I was just not going to ever want to read. The first is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. This is a classic science fiction book, and although there is something always intriguing about sci-fi because you never know where it's going to go, I was a little worried about this one just because it is an older sci-fi and sometimes there's issues with that. And although I did not have a particular problem with the first bit that I read, I wasn't that intrigued by where the story was going. So I also went on Wikipedia and decided to read a little bit more just to get an idea of what I might be in for, and the story goes in a direction that I was like, whoa, what is happening here? No, thank you. I do not want to read about that. It gets really weird, so I am gonna pass this one along. The second one on this pile is The Mysterious Flame of Queen Loana by Umberto Eco. This one, unfortunately, the writing style just didn't really sit well with me. The plot lines sounded intriguing, but once I actually sat down to read it, I didn't like how the story was being told, and it wasn't worth trying to read this few hundred pages just to, say I've read an Umberto Eco book, because I have heard good things about his writing. So maybe this one isn't for me. I'm not writing him off completely, just the writing style of this book was very particular to the plot line. So I feel like if I found a different book by him, I would be more interested in trying that out. The last one from that particular video that I'm getting rid of is The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. This one started off so promisingly. There's a sister who you're following, who her sister drove off a bridge a number of years ago, and it's not really clear if it was suicide or if she had some sort of medical episode, and you are at first reading from the sister who's still alive, her perspective, and then it jumps to these chapters of this book that was published posthumously for that sister that died, and I hated the writing style for that one. It was written in second person, and it was also very pretentious, and I'm sure some people would love the style of it, but I much preferred the part of the story that was following the sister that was still alive, interspersed with newspaper articles to sort of give context to the time. I liked that part, but the snippets from the book within a book, which is called The Blind Assassin, were so bad, and they were throughout the entire story, so it just was not worth it at all. This one is gonna get passed on to, I'm sure, another Canadian that would love to read a Margaret Atwood book. The final smaller stack of books within this bigger stack are books that I read all the way through. 2 of them, I accept the fact that I read them, that's fine. They were 3 stars for me, and then the other 2 I'm annoyed at, frankly. The first one is Mew is for Murder by Clea Simon. This was part of a little reading challenge that I did where I went to a library book sale in 2019. Friends picked out some books for me to read that were little mass market paperbacks that sounded kind of weird. One of the books that I read, I already just recycled it. It was total trash and not something I would want to pass along to somebody else. Plus, I was fostering a rabbit from the Humane Society and she chewed on the edge of it and I was like, oh, that's too bad. This one is an alright story, 3 stars. Certainly something that somebody else might enjoy reading. So it has a cat theme, as you might guess. And I do have a reading vlog that I did where I read those 2 books over a long weekend. So I'll link that as well if you want to go check that out. I also read A Short History of Women by Kate Walbert. This is one of those little books that I picked up either for a challenge or because I needed to read a book to fulfill like Goodreads goals, something. I don't even remember the exact context in which I read it. And the other thing is I barely remember this book at all. It follows a family of women through the generations and sort of seeing their roles in society change, their interactions with their mothers and their mothers' mothers. And it was fine at the time when I read it, but I'm never going to read it again, and it really hasn't stuck with me, so I just want to pass it on. Second to last is a book some of you might recognize because I did a full review of it for the Shelf Sisters series, and that is The Story of Edgar Sawtelle by David Wroblewski. This was a book that Les picked out for me to read, so even though it is quite large and I was not enjoying it at all, I pushed through it, and if it hadn't been picked out for me, I would have DNF'd it for sure. This book has a very promising synopsis about a boy who was born mute. He has a wonderful connection with his dog, and his family lives in rural Wisconsin, I believe. They train dogs and then, you know, sell them to families who are dog people. And that side of it sounded really nice. There was an uncle who comes and there's something going on with the uncle and his dad, and yeah, it intrigued me enough to obviously get the book in the first place, but oh my god, the story was so boring. There were little snippets at points that were interesting to me, but there was just so much time focused on the mundanity of everything. Is that how you say that? Mundanity? Mundanity? Is that even a word? There was so much time focused on the mundane things of the day-to-day life of taking care of these dogs, training these dogs. I learned so much about dog training from this book, but that's not why I wanted to read this. If I wanted that, I would have read a book about dog training. I wanted to learn more about Edgar and just have more interesting things happen. And I absolutely hated the ending as well. I since found out that this is actually like a modern version of Hamlet, and I did not pick up on that at all during the story, but I guess if you're a Shakespeare person and you know Hamlet really well, you would probably pick that up. But no, like not a good book at all. Not worth your time unless you like a very particular type of story. The very last book is Containment by Hank Parker. This was on my list of books that I wanted to read in 2020 because it definitely sounded intriguing. It is about a bioterrorist plot with a particular disease that's kind of Ebola-esque. You follow a CIA agent and an epidemiologist who have to team up together to track down the person who is trying to spread this weapon around. And the story started off very intriguingly. The tension was building, people were getting sick and they were trying to figure out why. It was definitely unsettling, and then the story just started going in directions that I didn't want it to. There was this weird subplot of like a long lost son trying to find his father, and there was a romance between the main characters that just did not feel right, and the villain was very much a cartoon mustache twirling kind of villain, just not somebody who I care about at all. I like books, and I feel like most of us like books where it's more gray and you can kind of sympathize with the villain. You understand where they come from. This guy was just like no, it was like a child's cartoon in terms of his motivations and his behaviors. I really can't recommend this one. I originally read it, one, because the inside cover sounded interesting, and also because I thought it might be something that my sister would enjoy, and once I finished it I was like, no, don't read this, not worth it. It had potential, but unfortunately it just didn't work out. Those are all the books I'm getting rid of. I'd love to hear your opinions if you've read any of these books, or if you've tried to read any of these and also didn't have any success. We can commiserate a bit in the comments. As always, all of our links are in the down bar. You can go check those out if you feel so inclined. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you later.